So interestingly, when you take a company to market and you find buyers and you're negotiating a transaction, you end up typically selling a company for some multiple of the profit of the business, 3 times, 5 times, 25 times, whatever it is. And in the negotiating process, you work off of the financial statements to figure out the profitability of a business. And when you look at those financial statements, they really tell the story of you, the entrepreneur, as the owner. That story might not necessarily be the story for the buyer. So for instance, you have, a car and a house, a vacation house, and you run some of those expenses through. Or maybe you have some people on payroll that the buyer's not going to keep on payroll. Maybe you have a personal assistant, and that personal assistant won't go with the transaction. Or maybe your salary, you're not going to stay. There's a cost to replace you, but maybe you're paying yourself $1 million a year, and post-transaction, we can replace your function at $300,000 a year. All of those things have to be factored in and negotiated. And it's not just the dollar for dollar, it's the multiple that matters. So I'll give you the example. Let's say you're $1 million a year in salary, and you're gonna stay on and run the business after the transaction. And you say, hey, I want $1 million in salary after the transaction. No problem, we're gonna keep that in the financial statements. So now your $1 million a year is gonna cost you whatever the multiple is that the buyer is paying for the business. So you might be better to say, hey, I'll drop my salary to $300,000 from $1 million, and I'll stay on and run the business, because now we just added $700,000 of profit back to the business. And if you're selling for a 5 times multiple, that's $3.5 million. If you're selling for a 10 times multiple, it's $7 million. So being really thoughtful about the leverage that's created by these multiples, it's not dollar for dollar, it's dollar for multiple that matters in the normalization process. And even in getting a company ready to go to market, you want to think about, like, marketing is another great one. Let's say you do a $100,000 website redesign. Well, if I take a company to market that has just done a $100,000 website redesign, I want to add that back because the buyer doesn't have to do it again, it's already been done. So we expensed it on the financial statement for the redesign, but the buyer doesn't have that burden going forward. So there's a process called quality of earnings, there's a process called normalization, where both parties try and figure out, to the best of their ability, what does the post-transaction financial statement look like? A lot of entrepreneurs don't even understand or know that this exists, and they end up with all this crap that the buyer's not gonna have, but they're not getting the multiple on that because it happens to be in their financial statement. So normalization and doing a quality of earnings, buyers are gonna do a quality of earnings where they're gonna bring an outside accounting resource in, they're gonna scrutinize left, right, and center the financial statements. You wanna do the same thing as a seller. Like, you want a third party to look and say, okay, post-transaction, this is what this business looks like, and this is how it should be valued. Really, really important, and hard to do for the entrepreneur because you're in it every day.
Whenever you're helping entrepreneurs with an exit, do you go into their financials and go through all the...
1,000%.
And you ask them, like, what's this, what's this?
1,000%. And the easy ones are, the perks, the cars, boats, houses, all those things. The harder ones are the one-time expense things, like the website redesign that I talked about. Even like high-level finance people that do normalization don't think oftentimes at that level. Like, what does this business look like post-transaction? What are the one-time expenses that aren't going to recur? Like, they look at the perk side. They don't look at the, they don't look at the finer points on financials. So I think it's imperative for the entrepreneur. And listen, there's no downside to throwing a bunch of spaghetti at the wall on the normalization front and then having a discussion about it. It's not like if I add back $3 million to your financial statements, then all of a sudden the buyer has to accept that. The buyer's gonna come back and go, all right, your website redesign, we get it, but we have to maintain that, so maybe it's 70,000, not 100,000 that we're gonna normalize out for that because we have a 30,000 a year expense. So it becomes a negotiation. The other thing is, yes, you want to run your business for tax efficiency, but so many entrepreneurs show so little profit for tax purposes, then they get into a transaction and, oh yeah, we had $1 million in profit for tax, but we're gonna add $4 million back and we're really a $5 million profit company. We're gonna normalize all that back in. It's gotta pass the reasonableness test too. So as you work up to a transaction, you wanna clean up your business, you wanna clean up your financials. If Aunt Sally's on the payroll, maybe we find another way to pay Aunt Sally that doesn't really work in the business, instead of having to tell a buyer, well, that's Aunt Sally, she really doesn't do anything. Because then it just starts to look fishy, I guess would be the word. So you want reasonable as well.
If I knew for a fact that I would start the process of exiting my company, let's say in 3 years,
Yeah.
what should I do today to clean up my finances or my business?
Yeah, so a couple things you want to look at. Employees. Are all your employment agreements in place? If you're gonna compensate employees on an exit, do you have those documented? Do you have a phantom stock or stock appreciation program? Who's on your cap table? Like, who's gonna have to sign off? We have clients that have 25 people on the cap table, and because of the operating agreement, all 25 people are gonna have to say yes. Like, just looking through all those. Legal due diligence. Is there anything outstanding? Are your contracts in order? Is anything expiring? Your lease on your building, where are you with that? This one's a weird one that pops up a lot. Most commercial leases have change of control provisions. So imagine you're gonna sell your company, you've done all the work, you've done everything, and it's the 11th hour, the 59th minute, and you go to assign your lease to the buyer, and your landlord goes, sorry, look in your lease, you're not allowed to assign it without my permission. Now you just gave your landlord leverage in your transaction. So looking at all those things, and I love the saying that strategy is a great story told backwards. Imagine it's the day you've sold your company. What are all the things that had to happen that led up to that? And you visualize all those things. That's what I would do 24, 36 months out. So it's not just about cleaning up the financial statements. It's about getting the house in order. And I believe really strongly, you should run a due diligence it's called reverse due diligence. You should run a due diligence process on your company as if you're the buyer, because they'll find all kinds of stuff that you'll never ever think of.
Any more specific examples? For example, the lease, that's a great example. Any more examples?
Of things to get cleaned up in advance?
Yeah.
A lot of customer contracts have change of control provisions. Talk about an awkward moment when you go to sell your company and now, like, your customer has leverage if they have change of control provisions. So knowing that they're there, getting out in front of a lot of these sort of surprises. Trying to think of some other kind of good examples of, like,
Paying yourself, or
you can. So you're better off to pay yourself through bonuses than through a W-2. It's nice to have a high salary, and it's great getting a big paycheck every month. You want your pay as the entrepreneur and your senior team as well to be market rate pay. So if you're in an industry where a CEO makes $500,000 a year, drop your pay to $500,000 a year, and then just use bonuses and other ways to get capital out of the company. So if you run it professionally as if somebody's gonna buy it, you'll change your mindset around certain things. And I'm not saying don't optimize for tax, which is important, but optimize for tax with the mindset that ultimately you're gonna exit.
is there, or what is the impact on paying out bonuses to you or your team before you're exiting? Is there an impact on the multiple?
So again, it's all a negotiation. If you're gonna pay, let's say you're gonna do a big stay bonus because you know the transaction's coming and they're in the loop on it, absolutely that gets normalized out. That's a whole other slippery slope where sometimes you wanna pay bonuses for people to say thank you for all their effort and their energy and their work. And all of a sudden the buyer finds out you're gonna pay bonuses and they want a bunch of strings attached, which is really an awkward conversation that happens at times where let's say you wanna take $2 million and bonus that out to your team and you happen to mention it. Never mention that to the buyer. When the buyer says, hey, are you gonna bonus your team? We don't know. We're gonna see how this goes. Yeah. Never, ever, ever, ever tell the buyer you're gonna bonus the team, Because all of a sudden they go, that's great. We want to attach a stay bonus. Instead of paying them $500,000 at close, why don't you pay them $250,000 and then pay them another $250 a year from now, as long as they stay with us? No. You do what you want to do for your employees. Don't let the buyer kind of get their hooks into how you're going to treat your team.
Yeah. Any more specific examples on how to clean it up, how to prepare, how to...
Just the best thing
that you've seen, or...
The best thing you can do is to walk into your business tomorrow as if you were the buyer, and just look around. Another, and this is going to sound so ridiculously simple, buyers are going to come visit. If you have a physical location, or even virtually, they're going to come visit your business, your website. Do you have typos on your website, or do you have a broken link for a video? Like, everything's going to be on display. If you have a physical location, we had a client, and they were in we'll call it a dirty industry, right? They were in an industrial type business. And buyers would come and they wanted to do site visits. And the place would be a mess. And there'd be trash laying around. And listen, in the normal course, who cares? Customers didn't come there. But when a buyer comes, they are subconsciously basically going to look at your business and make an assessment. Is this business well run or not? And if there's trash in the yard, it's not well run. You know, I want you to imagine two companies, totally identical, 100 million in revenue, 20 million in EBITDA. And you go to visit both of those businesses and you want to buy one of the two, right? You have a check, you're ready to buy one of those two. And you walk into the first company and it looks like a Swiss watch. And it's manufacturing, right? The manufacturing lines are pristine, there's no grease, there's the floors you could eat off of. It's literally running like a Swiss watch. And the owner is relaxed, they're at their desk, you're having a conversation, you can see out the window this beautiful factory floor. You walk into their competitor, same exact, 100 million in revenue, 20 million in profit, and you walk in and the receptionist says, hey, I'll go get the owner, but he's working on a problem, he's gonna be a minute. In fact, let me go down, I'll show you. And there's the owner on the factory floor under one of the lines that's broken. They've got grease on their hands, they're like a disheveled mess. And they're like, I'll be with you in a minute as soon as I get this fixed. Well, now you know that A, that owner is absolutely critical to that business. So if you buy it and they go away, you're in big trouble. And B, you know they're a little bit dysfunctional, it's messy. You don't want to be messy. You want to put, and it's the subconscious clues like that are even more important maybe than the conscious clues that are out there. You want it to look like something you'd be proud to show to your grandmother. You want it to look like something you'd be proud to show to a buyer. So just get your house in order and clean it up and look at it with a fresh perspective and a fresh set of eyes. Goes a really long way.
Yeah. So this is a bit of a random question maybe, but so imagine two exact same companies, same numbers, everything.
Yeah.
And they're in the garbage business. And one company, the company domain name is, for example, garbageservicesxyz.com. And the other one, it's the identical businesses, and the other company has garbage.com.
Yeah.
How much does that affect a multiple or the exit of a company?
Massive.
Yeah?
Yeah, massive. So again, you're trying to put the buyer in a future state.
Yeah.
And imagine even more importantly, garbage.com versus, Ilco's trashservice.com.
Yeah.
Well, we sold the business, there's no more Ilco.
Yeah.
And now, but even in kind of more, maybe less overt examples, there's value in the IP. So the value of garbage.com has to be factored in. It's got nothing to do with the cash flow of the business, but patents are another one. If you have patents or trade secrets or any IP that's protectable, and again, we talk about companies as a collection of assets and capabilities, those assets have value. Garbage.com would be worth way more than, XYZ.
If the XYZ would sell for 100 million, if garbage.com, what would be the add-on, you think?
So it's hard to say kind of at first blush, but I would imagine at least multiples of EBITDA.
Wow.
So in 120, 100 million, 20 million EBITDA, one's garbage.com and one is randomwebsite.com. I would say at least 1 or 2 times 20 million, and probably more.
So invest an extra million in garbage.com. The domain name is a good deal.
1,000%. Yeah, and again, you want the buyer to see a big, bright future, and there's a bigger future owning garbage.com than there is xyz.com.